tonight we're going to do something a little different. We have teenagers from 13 to 19 years old. Everybody goes to school? Yes. It's just tough questions like that for the rest of the hour. We're going to find out what teenagers know, what they think, what they have learned about the Constitution, about the Declaration of Independence, what they've learned in school, what they've learned on this program. Who's learned anything from this program that you... One, good. How many learned something from this program that you went back and you said, that can't be true? That can't be true. Okay, so quite a few of you. How many have watched this program and then gone back to their teacher at school and challenged them? Good, good, good. Ashley, what is the thing that you learned from this show?
You had the list of the goals of the Communist Party and how many of them had come true of recently.
And it was surprising, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I found that probably 10 years ago and looked at it, and not all of them had been completed. And now it seems like so many are. Joe?
I learned on your show that Thomas Jefferson actually signed a lot of his documents in Christ, but a lot of people say that he was a deist. So is he a Christian or a deist?
Right.
That's what I like.
You know what's funny is David Barton is here with us, America, and put David on camera. David, I saw somebody write you up, some professor wrote you up and said, oh, that's David Barton just making that stuff up. That was that one document. Is it that one document that...
That one plus thousands of others, yeah.
Okay, right. But it is that one document?
It is that one and a whole lot more.
All right, good. And Nicholas?
This wasn't actually during your program. It was during your speech at CPAC, and it was about the real history of the Statue of Liberty, and it's not just the French giving us a gift. It was much more than that.
I mean, you guys really didn't think the French were just being nice, did you? No, that makes no sense. Let me ask you this. I want to transition into, are we a democracy or a republic? Republic. Republic. Anybody want to tell me what the difference is between the two? Mike, do you have a microphone down here? Do we have a mic? Pass it down to him. There you go, right behind you.
A democracy is directly ruled by the people. A republic, you get representatives who rule for you.
Why do they do that?
Because the people don't have time to read over documents and things of that nature, so they almost hire somebody to do it for them.
Okay.
Make the best choice for them.
Okay. What is the problem with a republic?
Well, I guess the people don't necessarily always get what they want. They have to trust in other people.
Okay, good. Any other problems that anybody can see? Nicholas, what do you think the problem is?
Well, sometimes the people don't elect the representatives directly, and that can sometimes cause a problem, like it has in history.
Okay. Anybody else? Anybody else see a problem? Pass the mic down here. Go ahead, Scott.
It's a lot easier to control one person's opinion than a million.
How do you mean?
Like, if you have one person in government, you can corrupt them a lot easier than a million billions.
Has anybody thought of, Alexander, go ahead, maybe you have it.
Well, I was going to say that some people could campaign on certain issues and then once they're in office completely do a 180.
That happens all the time. Hello, that happens all the time. Here's what I'm thinking. You guys were all talking about the government. But what about the people? You said that a republic, because the people don't have time, and so they just hire somebody to do it. But if the people get lazy and they're not vigilant, then everything goes to hell in a handbasket. Then you're in real trouble, right? Is that kind of where we find ourselves now? Yes. So whose fault is it? Is it Washington's fault? Or is it the people's fault?
People's.
It really is our fault. I mean, we can blame them all they want, but all we want, but it really, I mean, it comes from us. Who has been taught that the Declaration of Independence is irrelevant today, plays no role in today's society? It's just an old, dusty document. One, Nicholas has. Anybody else? How about the Constitution, that it's just a relic? Couple of people? You have, Anthony? By your teacher or by media or what? The former president? Yeah. But you mean by actions? He did say it. He did? He said the Constitution is just a piece of paper. Well, yeah, okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah, the Constitution is just a piece of paper, and technically he's accurate on that. We want to talk a little bit about, and I want to bring David Barton in on this, and I want to talk a little bit about the difference between a a republic and a democracy, why it was written the way it was. Can anybody give me, I mean, you're a smart group. We tested you before you came in. You're a very smart group. I hope you really are a representation of the cross-section of America, because you guys are very, very bright. Help me out on this. Can anybody give me the 5 points, the philosophical points of our government, of the makeup of our government? There's 5 things. 2 people can do it, David. 2 people can do it. Who raised their hand? Mike has his hand raised. Do we have the microphone here? Go ahead, Mike.
Checks and balances, for one.
I'm looking at David.
That'd be Constitution. 5 things in the Declaration set the philosophy of government.
I didn't know. I didn't even know this one. I had no idea. Anybody? Give it, David.
And in the first 126 words, you find that there is a creator. He gives inalienable rights. He has a moral law which governs men. The government exists to protect the rights he gives, and that below God-given rights, you rule by the consent of the governed.
Okay.
So those are the 5 principles.
I'm going to come. What I'm going to do is, because you guys have a lot of great questions. I've asked you questions. You have a lot of great questions. We're going to get to those here in a second. But first, I want David, I guess, to give kind of an overview of, because there are people now that are saying Woodrow Wilson was one of them. I hate that guy. Woodrow Wilson was one of them, and he has a very similar opinion of the Constitution and the Declaration as Barack Obama. Wilson said, forget the Declaration of Independence. It's an old list of grievances, right?
Wrong. It is a list of grievances that's common. Well, here's a good example. 27 clauses in the Declaration tell us why that we separated from Great Britain. Among those clauses is one that says, the king keeps setting up brand new government offices among us. He keeps sending new employees in from the government to eat all of our tax money. Kind of sounds like today. For the grievances, they said, we're tired of judicial activism. We're going to start our own country where the judges don't make policy. Kind of sounds like today. One of them said, we're tired of what's happening with immigration through Great Britain. We're going to do something different. Those are issues that are relevant, and they've not been issues that were isolated just to then.
The difference is that progressives think that we make progress as human beings, and so do I. I mean, we're not Stone Age people,
right?
But the basic greed, desire to control, even keep people, you know, as slaves one way or another, just controlling them, manipulating them, all the bad traits in humans, we don't progress out of those.
Now, see, what happens is technology progresses, but human nature doesn't.
Right.
We've got the same characteristics, the same desires, the same abuses, the same virtue and honor that's there. It's the technology that changes.
And so really the idea was a smaller government, because the government, if the government is then just a handful of people, they take it and then they control everybody. And so everybody is under control with these, where a small government, you might have abuses here and there, but the people can rise up against it. And for the most part, people are as free as they allow themselves to be, based on their responsibility.
That's right.
Right?
And what you have with a larger government is, the problem is larger governments tend to gravitate up rather than down, so they get further away from the people. They're less accountable. They didn't mind large governments if it was local government.
Right.
But the higher you got up the chain,
that's what everybody,
the more problem
we've
was.
gone just the opposite direction here. For instance, let's take immigration. How would the founders view immigration today? What's happening in Arizona? What would they do?
The founders looked at immigration and said it was a state issue. And that, I'm talking the signers of the Declaration, the Constitution, those who served on the Supreme Court. Immigration was a state issue. Now, what the feds would do is they would protect the coast and the borders. They would use the Army, the Marines, the Coast Guard, the Navy, whatever. They would protect the integrity of the nation. But you had to immigrate into a state, and going into that state, you had to meet the standards of that state. Now, once you got there, Article 4 would allow you, Article 4 of the Constitution allows you to travel among the states. Contracts are honored, commerce is honored, but you had to go into a state. So it was really the states who controlled immigration, not the feds. The feds controlled the borders, but not immigration.
And people don't understand, the people on the left don't understand, that that's what the Tea Party movement is really all about. It's not, I just heard a speech the other day from Barack Obama, and he said, you know, they haven't had any new ideas. The Republicans, they haven't had any new ideas. They're right.
Yeah.
The Republicans haven't had a come to Jesus moment. They don't, I mean, they're progressive light. Many of them, not all of them, many of them are. And they haven't had a new idea. But Barack Obama and the progressive left's idea really comes from about 1848 with Karl Marx and socialism. That's
not a new idea.
Yeah, that's not a new idea. I think that's actually the oldest idea known to mankind. And what they think is that we're arguing to go back to 1990 or Ronald Reagan. We're not.
Yeah.
We're arguing that the states should be empowered because this giant government doesn't work. You can't afford it.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. And so you dismantle the government and bring the control local there.
One of the things that we're arguing for is a set of principles that have proven to be successful across time. They keep changing the principles. We don't care if technology changes, but the founders, that's what's so cool about the Constitution. It doesn't deal with specifics, it deals with principles. Therefore, it's timeless. It works as well today, 230 years later, as it did back then, because it's principle-driven. Now, over that time, we found that those principles work. We want to go back to those principles, including, we were talking about democracy, republic, and the American Republic, in addition to being a republic, we are a federal constitutional republic, and a federal republic means that we share power evenly with the states, and that's what we don't do anymore.
Who here has, raise your hand if you, I'm going to give you several choices. Raise your hand if you think the Soviet Union was just a failed state. Raise your hand if you think the Soviet Union was a bad state. Kind of one. Raise your hand if you think the Soviet Union was evil. Okay, not everybody, but most. To me, the problem is once we defeated communism, we stopped thinking about communism. They just changed uniforms.
That's right.
Putin, have you ever seen?
Right.
Have you ever watched? Next time you watch Vladimir Putin on TV, the president or what is he now, the prime minister of Russia, watch the way he walks. Does anybody ever notice this? You've noticed it? He walks and he only swings one arm. Why would he only swing one arm when he walks? Who walks like that? What? KGB. Why does he have one? Because he's trained himself so long to keep your hand where your pistol is that he walks like this. Now that's bred into that guy, man. He has worked hard to make sure KGB principles. All he did was take off the colonel uniform and put on a suit and tie and say, I'm good. The problem with where we've let you down is we haven't taught enough about communism. It didn't go away. We thought it did. My whole life, has anybody spent any time at all growing up worried that nuclear missiles were going to come over the poles and obliterate all of us? Never? Terry, you did? Missiles? What? Do we have a microphone for? Yeah, go ahead, Terry.
Well, honestly, because I'm really heavy into history, so I with everything that I've read, I've always sat there and said, well, this could happen one day, because it's not completely over.
Right.
But
there were times when I was a kid, and I'm not alone. David, you probably did this too when you were a kid. You had a hard time going to sleep because you thought the missiles could come at any time.
Yeah.
I remember in 1980, I worked in Washington, D.C., and it was right after KAL 007. The Soviet Union shot down a jetliner, a 747, and it was filled with people. And we said I think we said it was an act of war, did we not? And I remember working in Washington, D.C., and looking at the Lincoln or the Washington Memorial, thinking I could be vaporized in the next 24 hours because the missiles will come here.